Yaman Levusha, no the Basharim Bala, Mashito Zikne Aretz, Sadi Nasna Batim Kor, Chagar Nasna Lakanani, Ozradar Levusha, Batisla Yom Acharon, Pia Pasma Hachma, Resource Chesed, Chesed Alishona, Sophia Lichas Beis Avlech, Matzus Lo Sochel, Hamavaneh Yoshua, Bala Bihala, Rabos Banos Asuchai Batalis, Alkulana, Sheker Achem Behevel Yofi, Isha Yirs Adonahi, Sisala, Tanula Mipriyadeha, Yalua Besharim, Lahaseha. We're here to give Kavod Acharon, the Frumet Bas Abraham. This is Claire Werzberger. We'll be hearing from the following maspidim. First will be a Kavod Gadol to hear Hesped from Moshe Mordechai Lowy. We'll also be hearing from David Markovic and Shia Markovic as well.
We gathered together to give Kevurah Achron to be maspid and to take to her eternal rest. He's not
saying me 1 second.
We'll also be hearing from Eliezer Stahl.
Just 1 moment, Brother Lowy.
Akiva, could I go ahead?
Just 1 moment. 1 second. If the Rav's ready, go ahead.
Okay.
Yep.
We're here together to give the Kevurah Achron, to speak about Isha Kshera, Isha Tzenua. This is Frumet Werzbeger, Shalom Frumet Bas Avraham Werzbeger. I can't meet her personally, but I was involved so much with her life. Everything is Ashgacha Protis. The Levaya is not good now. When I came to a town almost 40 years ago, her husband, Rabbi Werzbeger, called me up that he wants to be a member in Agudath. He took a Rav and he wants to be official member in Agudath. Everything is Ashgacha 40 years later. Is Eishes Chayil is having her, and Ishtek Gufay is having her Levaya in our Bais Medrash in Agudath. A big covet for me to be able to be maspid. I'm in the Agudath. I'm in there being maspid her in the Agudath where her husband wanted to be. And he gave me so much chizuk when I came. And that chizuk helped many times in all the years when he used to come speak to me. And Mrs. Werzberger, Shalom, she was so dedicated. I remember when her husband wasn't well, she used to call me always with shilas, says you have to put on tefillin, what's with his fasting, and she wanted him to feel the Yiddishkeit, even when he was having the times that he didn't really know what's happening. She was so interested. What could she do for him? And all the years before, it helped him, and everything he did, being the Eishes Chayil, being a real wife, caring about her husband, caring about everything. And she was the Akeres Habayis, the woman who took care of the home, would make sure that the home is a home that should be a home for the Shechina, for the Rabbi Shalom. She brought the Shechina into the home. She brought the Shalom into the home. Her whole, the way she acted, the way she spoke, was like a Benois Menachem. She had the distinguished, beautiful way she was presented herself. Being like in this week's parasha, to know who we are, Yidden, we're special. After going through the tortures of Europe, tortures of the Holocaust, losing almost the whole family, she was able to get out of those ashes and showing that we're bonim to Hashem, we're children of the Rabbi Shalom, being proud of being a Yid, being proud of being children of the Rabbi Shalom, to know that we're the Segula Mekalamim. I remember how many times we spoke the Segula that she said, and this was her whole Metzias, knowing, being proud of being a Yiddish Mama, being a Yiddish Afroy, being proud of Kal Yisroel. Yism Segula, you're Segula Mekalamim. We don't act like everybody else. We're different. We're different. You know, the famous mashal they bring where a king's son went to go and play with the other people in the mud. And the king called him over, you know, you're a king's son, you're a prince. You play different, you act different. We act different. And the way she acted was something you could be envious of. Her derech of neimus, then the derech hayeshora, the way she spoke, the way she carried herself, was all being b'nois melachim. And in spite of going through everything, in spite of those who try to go and push us down and make us feel like we're nothing, to feel, because she said she remembered always from her home, being proud of being a Yiddish person, being proud of being a Yid. And that's how she established the home. When Paroi asked Moshe Rabbeinu, who's going mi oilchem, and he said, only the men should go. He didn't want the woman to go. So the Mefarshim explained, because he knew women are the one who make a home. Women are the ones who establish the home. The mama, Mrs. Werzberger, was the mama who put this beautiful home of her three children, Ms. Sean and Ms. Markovic and Shia, home. Every one of those homes, she comes up to Shemayim, she goes back to her parents, she goes back to her husband. Look at what we have. Look at children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. Look what we did here. Going from the dust and from the ashes, we were able to get out and build this beautiful home. This was Mrs. Werzberger, was able to build a home with feinkeit and show the stolzkeit of being a Yid, the niceness of being a Yid, and being a b'nois melachim, Satmar Rebbe Zachayin Bracha, after the war, he came to Eretz Yisroel. He went and the first thing, he's established a cheder in Yerushalayim. So someone asked him that time, there's enough chedorim, why are you making a cheder in Yerushalayim? So he says, Hamalach hagoy lo yisim kol ra. Look, 6 million people got killed. Everyone who got saved was Ashkocha Pratis, they were saved. Why they were saved? Why were they saved? V'vorachas and Arim. So they should be able to raise new children. We got saved. We were saved from the ashes. Got saved from the hold of those Tzayne Yisroel. We were saved for one purpose: to raise a future generation. Mrs. Werzberger could be proud of the generation. Baruch Hashem, her children, every one of her children, all the families. She produced children. Each one of them is Ben Melech and Benois Melachim. What they do for Klal Yisrael, each one of them, they do for everybody. And this is the V'orachas Hanorim. Look at the children. Look at the children. In the beginning of the parsha, the Medrash is very interesting Medrash. I'm giving you today bracha and klola. The thing I'm giving you for bad. So there says, no, I'm giving you for good. So the Medrash is puzzling. You would think your Baal is giving something for bad. Why would you think Lura? So I think Pshat is the Baal gives us Bechira. I'm giving it to you. And that's what it says, every person has his own Bechira. Every person has his own choice what he should do. So Bechira is not a good thing. If our Baal would make us all and automatic, be on automatic, do mitzvahs and not do averos, be the best. Baal says, I'm doing it for your tova, because to deserve to have schar, you should. We shouldn't eat in the ham of the chasufa, like the Zohar Kodesh says. We shouldn't eat bread that we didn't do ourselves. Mrs. Werzberger could go and say, look at the work I did. Look what I did to make sure I have this beautiful family, this Torah family, this Yiddish family, this Erlich family, this Amunah family. Look what I did together with my husband, what we built. The bracha she'll get down Shemayim. The bracha she gets in Shemayim, like Rabbi Yoin writes in his letter, that a woman comes up to Shemayim, and Rabbi Shem says, let me see what you did. She could say, look at my peres. Look at my beautiful peres. The Medrash brings down in Parsh Kesavai that a husband could bring Bekura Ishtay, could bring Bekurim of his wife. Bekura Ishtay means the Bekurim, and Besimcha say, look at what my wife did. The Rebbe could go and say, look at my beautiful family I had. She leaves this world, Besimcha. She leaves this world to know when she has a smile on her face, because look at what I had, what I did in this world. Look what I was able to accomplish in this world. Look what my life was all about. My life was all about establishing a home that should be a pe'er for Klal Yisrael. Walking in a home, and it was beautiful the way she kept her home, a beautiful home, a home that should be a pleasant, a home should be pleasant, Gashmizdik and Ruchnisdik, for everyone, the children. That's how you see her children, her daughters and her son, they're all the same way. And how could you see who a parent was? You see at the Kevurah of the children, the Kevurah aim. What the children did, even now in the last days, till she wasn't well, and going and caring every second, making sure everything is done. You could see what a parent does when children, like this Yisroel brings the Alexander Rebbe, old age is payback time. You pay back what his children got so much from her. They know, so payback time, what they did for her, the unbelievable Kevurah, the unbelievable, they saw how dedicated she was to her husband in times were very, very shaky, times that were big in kindness. And they kept her alive as long as they were able to do everything possible for her, going there day and night, caring for her day and night. And this is a reflection of what she did for them, a reflection what she put into them. Parents put in Kevurah b'aim into children, but on the way she spoke respectfully about her parents, she spoke respectfully about her husband's parents, and the respect she gave to her husband, that gets reflected in the children. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem help. She's going up to Shemayim. Remember your special children, what they did so much for you. Remember your son Shia, what he does so much, what he does so much for Klal Yisrael, what they do for everyone. Remember your daughters, how much they do for you, for Klal Yisrael. Remember your sons-in-law, what they do for everybody, for everybody. Remember with Klal Yisrael, when you're going up in a time where it's so hard, even a Levaya can't be a normal Levaya. And like the Pelitzois brings down that, in a time like this, and otherwise this kind of time, a person like that sure goes straight up to Shemayim. There's time like this, where you can't even have a proper Levaya, a proper Baruch Hashem. It's better than used to be. At least we go into a Bais Medrash. You go, you are part of our Agudath. You're part of our, in this week's parsha, like it's going to do, that you shouldn't, like it's going to letasu Agudath. You should be one Agudah, one together. We're all together and together. This is something that you always cared for. It shouldn't be machlokes. It should always be unity, unified together. She used to speak to me always about how we can make sure to unify everybody in the city, everyone together. So she was zoicha that she's having the Levaya and the Agudah in a place where you agate everybody together The Baruch Shalom the Shishbiyam Litzis Yosher for Choshev children who did so much for her, for the grandchildren, the great grandchildren, for a city that she loved so much, the people she loved so much, everyone, how much tried she was to them, and be Litzis Yosher for Klal Yisrael. Then we benchmark Chodesh we on this Shabbos that should be taka. The Baruch should be mahapach all the tzoros. It should be a Chodesh in a year that she should be able to see a lot of nachas and Shemayim. You could see with the real eyes. She'll see Re'eh. Should be a raya to see the beautiful nachas from all the children. And by her, you saw what the pasuk says: Habracha Asher Tishmuin. By her biggest bracha is that she'll be able to do a mitzvah. Remember when she called me up, I was able to put on tefillin on my husband today. She was a whole day happy, the happiness she had that she was able to do something, to do a mitzvah. And she called me sometimes in what she should do. And the biggest simcha by her was the Baruch Hashem and my children and Erlich children. That was the biggest simcha. For all of them, for Klal Yisrael, Mach Hashem dim al kapanim ish bizoicha to see well saying Goyal the Gula b'mheir b'yameinu amen.
On behalf of the family, I wanted to Saudi, Shia, Chayu, and Saudi. I just wanted to thank the Agudath for all the trouble that they went through to organize it without any fanfare. They were very accommodating, and in these times it's quite difficult to be able to coordinate and deal and navigate with all the different government bodies and all these different bodies that we were having to deal with, and restrictions and monitors. And Baruch Hashem, we've been able to we're able to give a proper coverage for my mother-in-law, and to Rabbi Vale, who's been able to assist us today, and to be able to pitch in and to be here to help us. And with Lowy, we've since my mother-in-law has been, before she's been in the hospital, it's been a year and 3 months, and we were constantly dealing with different shilas throughout the year, throughout this lengthy ordeal that my mother-in-law had to go through. And Lowy was there, always able to answer all our shilas and tell us with glad how to deal with things that we ourselves would not have been able to do on our own. And the places of Das Torah that even those things didn't seemed maybe counterintuitive, it always with Das Torah you only do right. And also before that, when Rabbi Weber was always there for my mother-in-law, he would come and visit. He would be calling to see how she was, and always inquiring both about my mother-in-law and my father-in-law. So as well, I'd like to express our hakaras hatov to Bikur Cholim for being there for us throughout this time and delivering the packages and dealing with all our needs. People that were very helpful with We had bikucholim accommodations. Whenever we needed other accommodations, people were there with an open heart and always with an open there to let us to make it so much easier to shoulder the burden. Hatzalah, Chaim Weinberger from the beginning, Shelley Botnick with ECHO, also dealing with the doctors, and all our friends, all our many friends who have been there, whether it was meals, whether to give a comforting ear and helping us in all different ways. And of course, our extended family and those that came, they would come and visit us, come and visit my mother-in-law. So we owe a very much of a Koras HaToiv to all these people. To Dr. Kenny Greenwald, who would come any time of day or night both for my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, who's been there who has been taking care of them for many years. To our caregivers who have been like family to my mother-in-law and to us, and taking care of both of my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, Bibi, who has been part of our family since our children were little, and who was running the house, and everything was being looked after, all the different needs, both emotional and physical. And as well, we had Anna, who was taken there at nighttime, going in the hospital and being there overnight, so that Bobby would always have company. And we had Maria, so who was there with her humor, looking after Bobby in physical ways and as well in emotional. So we have a tremendous Koras HaToiv to all these people. It's also part of in this week's parsha. It says V'ato Yisroel Ma'aseh Elokim Darish Mimcha, and the Orach Chaim says V'ato. One of the things he says later on in that pasuk is the V'ato is that now is the opportunity. When you're in Olam Hazes, the opportunity to chap the mitzvahs. This is when you do it, because in Olam Hazes when you get the reward. But this is V'ato. Now you have to seize the moment, and we had this nisayon that we were given over the last few years, both with my father-in-law, to deal with his nisyanis, and with my mother-in-law later on. And they gave us that opportunity to be mechabed, them and to look after them, and especially whether it was all the grandchildren, both locally and also out of town, who came to visit and to call. We were able to, we did to the best of our ability to fulfill the V'ato, to take advantage of that opportunity, because that mitzvah of kibbutz av is no longer, we don't have that with Bobby and with his Zaidi. And Shia and Sabi, whatever they could do. Sabi was coming for weekends to the hospital, and Zeldi and Chayu, day after day, weekends, Shabbosim, and there was a lot. We were able to, the Tehillim and all the things that we were able to do, the mitzvahs that we were able to chap around in the V'ato, and that is no longer here. So hopefully we were able to fulfill that. Lastly, I wanted just to mention in closing, but to thank the people in Mount Sinai, all the doctors and the nurses, and in Grace Hospital. In the last few months, especially, I want to mention Dory Izikow Weiss, who was the floor manager, who it was mamish like a malach, an angel, that we had somebody there, especially when we had no access to the room. We had when there was the isolation, and were very fortunate to have somebody there on the inside, and it was not our doing. We would have preferred another hospital, but it worked out mamish hashgacha pratis. And to the doctors, Dr. Herridge and Dr. Rush, and so we have been, this is really what we've been, the opportunity that we had to do what we could, despite despite and with all the challenges that the nisyanis that came our way. I just want to say in closing, my mother-in-law, Bobby, was somebody who's she was honest. Sometimes she could be, brutally honest, but also in different ways. She didn't know of shtick in business and she and how she dealt with people. She was very, very straight. But when it came to the children, she treated us. The shalom bias was extremely important to her. She treated all the children and there was no difference between the children and the in-laws, the son-in-laws and the daughter-in-laws. We were all like children to her. And the dedication and what she gave to her for the children and the grandchildren was endless shire. It was everything. That was both for Zaidi and Bobby. That was the whole life. That's all that mattered. Bobby, the neshama of Bobby should be a melit yosher. She should have a aliyah, and we should have those that need refuah should have refuah signed in the family and signed in Klal Yisrael. Those that need shidduchim and whatever we need.
I stand here humbled to be maspid, Yisroel, Bobby, but I'm strengthened by the fact that I don't have to say my own words, rather I'm going to read the words of my mother-in-law, Chayesham. A woman of valor who can find for her value is more precious than pearls. Once again, 5 years later, we are confronted with the daunting and impossible task of distilling a valiant and epic life of 93 plus years into a few inadequate and meager words. There's so much to say and so little time to say it. Mami, Bobby, Frumet bas Avram v'chaya Werzberger, our mother, our grandmother, our great-grandmother, matriarch of our family, was that paradigm of Jewish femininity on Eishes Chayil, a woman of valor. The eighth and youngest child of Avram and Chaya Hillman, granddaughter of Rabbi Yaakov Yosef Lefkovich, a descendant of Maral. She and her 4 brothers and 3 sisters grew up in Taich, Czechoslovakia. There, in her parents' home, a home of chesed and strict adherence to Messiah, she acquired the skills and knowledge she would carry with her for the rest of her eventful and heroic life. Her mother was a skilled balabusta, as well as a businesswoman, and Mami absorbed everything. Their home was the address for visiting Hasidic royalty, including the Satmara of Rabbi Teitelbaum, Zatzal, who would stay by them when you visited their town. Indeed, my mother, at a young age, demonstrated the charming sassiness that was so much a part of her endearing personality when she elbowed her way through a crowd of Hasidim in her living room to ask, or knowing our Mami, to demand a brucha from the Rebbe. The horrified entourage tried to waylay the young upstart, but the Rebbe prevented them. He asked her, "Welche brucha willst du?" What bracha do you want? To which my then 9-year-old mother replied, Ich will chasna huben. I want to get married. My mother remembered that the Rebbe smiled and benched her, no doubt, not only with the blessing of marriage, but long life and children as well. This bracha would prove invaluable to her, for not many years later, her town was overrun by the dreaded Nazi killing machine. She and her family were deported to Auschwitz on Auschwitz 1944. Her parents and 2 older brothers were immediately murdered. She recounted later that she believes she survived the horror only because she was together with her 3 beloved sisters, Etta Pollock, Gitta Bistritzer, and Motza Brisk, Alehem Hashalom. She was not known for grand speeches on the Emunah and Bitochen, but she said on more than one occasion that if you did not enter the Gehenna of the war believing in the Rabbi Nishleidos Hashgacha, you came out believing in it. Family was her rock and shelter during that time, and family was a raison d'etre for her entire life. Her family was her magnum opus. No one had more accomplished, smarter, and more beautiful children and their grandchildren than she and her father had. The pasuk says, "Botach bo levaila." Her husband's heart believed in her. This pasuk is devoted to her. That statement of Shlomo HaMelech describes our parents' relation to AT. They were introduced to each other in New York after coming to North America, first to Canada and then to the US. Our mother was beautiful and so was our father. Their 63 years together were spent rebuilding what had been lost. A family built on the values of their parents and grandparents, creating a home that was filled with love, with avodah, and with Torah. Although she never received a formal Beis Yaakov education, her values were rock solid. For example, if she had even suspected a lie, well, it was best to hide first and explain much, much later. Both our mother and father were bachint. Our home was always the favorite destination of our cousins and aunts and uncles. Now that I am older, it never ceases to amaze me how much laughter there was at home. Despite what they had endured, they created Bais Yisroel, and she did this with her determination, intelligence, and humanity. David HaMelech in Sefer Tehillim tells us, Kol Kevurah bas Melech Penima. The honor of the daughter of the king is hidden. It is internal. We live in an age where people do not understand the concept of royalty. Members of the royal family of England, that most august exemplar of royalty, are nowadays treated as nothing more than celebrities who are there for the amusement and ridicule of the public. The dignity, awe, history, and reverence for a queen is all but gone, but we knew what royalty was. Our mother epitomized royalty, the royalty of a Yiddish tochter, a Jewish daughter. She was always impeccably dressed. Her home was always the cleanest, most orderly. Her baking and cooking were a testament to the value she placed on creating a welcoming home for the Shekhinah. It occurred to me recently that these precious neshamis, the neshamis of the previous door, those who walked through the fire of Gehenna on earth and emerged as mamina b'nei maminim, they who went on to build families, homes, communities, moistei satayra. These individuals are likened, in my mind, to the shivrei luchais, broken once, shattered, but coming from such an exalted place of Kedusha that they were carried before Klal Yisrael into battle. These precious Anshe Kevurah, these precious Nishei Chayil, they created edifices of Nitzchias, of eternity, and we are the grateful beneficiaries of their sacrifice. Our tafkid is now clear. To do all that we can to continue to carry forward this precious legacy. Our mother, Aleha HaShalayim, all beautiful 5 feet 2 inches of her, was the epitome of that Kevurah. Even in her last days, when she was unable to communicate or even to move, her strength of character and fortitude never were in doubt. She defied the doctor's prognosis so many times that we really came to believe she would be with us always. Her loss is irreplaceable. For our family, it is the end of an era. Mami, Babi, as you ascend to the Shemayim, please go before the Kisei HaKavod, and with all your irresistible chayin, insist that the Rebbeinu Shalom send refuos and yeshuos for your children, your grandchildren, and all of Klal Yisrael. Bil Hashem lamavis lanetzach u'mocha lekimdimo mi'al kol panim v'noimar amen. Before I conclude, my family and I would wish to take the opportunity to thank Bibi, Anna, Maria, Nellie, Avi, and Shirley for your faithful and unwavering devotion and care during our mother's last years. There are simply no words to adequately convey our depth of gratitude to you. Thank you. Finally, we wish to thank Rabbi Lowy Shlita for always being available day or night, near or far, to accept our phone calls and to provide us with Torah guidance during our mother's very difficult last days, months, and years. May Hashem bench you with gesund, mazel bracha, refuos yeshuos v'chol tov.
As Laser began, obviously, to speak about the woman Frumet Avram is, I come from a totally different generation, which can't begin to imagine Nisyonis sacrifices. That's not, I stand here as a grandchild being maspid, their grandmother, try to represent my brother who can't be here, Aaron Tzvi, my sisters, and whoever else wants to be included. The pasuk begins, Re'ei anochi noisim lifneichem hayom bracha u'klala. The Archaim tells on what does it mean? Re'ei anochi, see that I give in front of you today. What's hayom? What is hayom bracha u'klala? Moshe Rabbeinu is standing, guiding, teaching, prodding the Yidden into Shmiras Torah u'mitzvahs, into B'charta B'chaim for 40 years. What does it mean, Noisim Lifneichem Hayoim? I give in front of you today. So Rechaim quotes the Gemara, Ein Odom Oimid Al Das Rabbi Ad Arboim Shana. It's true. Moshe Rabbeinu was the Rebbe for 40 years. And yes, maybe we can add Re'ei Lifneichem, Re'ei, to be able to see clearly. Lifneichem, it should be in front of you, tangible. Ein Odom Oimid, a person doesn't get to that level of clarity. Person could be hearing the same lessons, internalizing the same teachings. Ein Odom Oimid Al Das Rabbi. A person is not able to feel clearly these what the Rebbe is trying to impart until 40 years. So we stand here at the Levaya of our grandmother. We all knew Babi. We all lived with Babi. Babi wasn't one to teach vocally. I don't think I heard once from Babi a criticism. She was always quieting other people's criticisms. I don't think I heard Babi criticizing a grandchild. And to learn from Babi is to be around her and to slowly internalize the generations that Babi represents, the link that Babi was from across the sea, and those heilige generations, those heilige dors, and to our dor. Pasuk says, as Rabbi Lowy Shlita quoted, "Bonim atem l'Hashem Elokeichem." Your children to Hashem. Like Rashi brings, therefore, leisus goydedu, leisus simu karcha. We're not allowed to make any physical, bodily manifestation of avelus on a mace, as opposed to the minig of the goyim in that time. Yidden are usur, Yidden are forbidden from doing that. Why? It's not noah, it's not proper, it's not befitting of bnei of banim l'Hashem lekeichem, of children of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to make such manifestations. You're children of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We know that the mitzvah of Kibbud Av V'Em, one of the reasons for the vast importance attributed to the mitzvah of Kibbud Av V'Em is that for a person to give kavod to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for a person to properly appreciate where he truly comes from, the true source of his Chaim, he has to start with his source on this world, with his Av V'Em. And therefore, a person is told, don't take everything for granted. Realize that without your parents, you wouldn't be here. Start giving kavod. Start keep it of an aim. That's your mashal. And the nimshal is the Rebbeinu Shalom. The nimshal is V'ahavta Hashem lekecha es Hashem lekecha tira. Perhaps in the same vein, if a person wants to acquire the pride and the nobility which the mitzvah of Bonim Atem Hashem lekechem requires from us and is mechayev us, so let him start by appreciating the uniqueness and feeling proud toward his own upbringing. Again, recognizing that he's not born in a vacuum, but rather he's a continuation and a representation of an entity that precedes him. Babi came from an Erlicha family of Bali Chesed, and of how Babi always explained to us, her mother was a queen of nobility. The Avram Hillman and Chaya Hillman, and further Lefkowitz families. And while the war years may have physically wiped out her parents, some of her siblings, and uprooted her from the land she grew up in, that nobility and connection to the strong Yiddishkeit of her mother and father is something which she carried with her and defined her. We don't know how things look in Shemayim, but we can only imagine a reunion of parents and daughter, a daughter which was tasked with rebuilding together with Zaidi all that was lost, and which returns her neshama having left over 3 generations of Bonim Lashem Elekechem. All of us grandchildren know that Babi loved nothing more than to treat us and to pamper us. Whether it was buying an expensive piece of clothing or taking the whole family out to eat, Babi truly, truly delighted, and her joy was in making us grandchildren happy. But obviously it wasn't just things. More than anything, it came through in how she spoke to us in a way that conveyed that she thought the world of each grandchild. From the moment you entered her house, whether you were coming from Muncie, or you were coming from Hillmount, or you were coming from around the corner, you felt that you were the main attraction. Whatever was happening in the house before you came, now you're here. Let's discuss your life. Let's discuss how you're feeling. As long as you're okay, I'm okay. She would tell us how lucky we are for our parents, how lucky we are for our siblings, and how lucky we are for our cousins. And that created the deep, deep connection we all have to each other, which she took so much pride of, and which is something that she, behind the scenes, was perhaps her greatest accomplishment and her biggest goal. Mentioning Melachim, B'nais Melachim, the Rambam says, what's the main characteristic of a melech? What is a melech? The Rambam says, Liba Lev Ha'am. His heart encompasses the heart of the nation. What does this mean? Obviously, every simcha is a simcha. Personally, I felt that my own personal simchas, you felt the simcha. When you would call Babi and let Babi know of the simcha. I don't remember exactly the time or where I was. I can't recall perfectly where at which exact moment this child was born and that child was born. But I remember calling Babi. I can tell you which hallway I was in the hospital. I can tell you her tone of voice when she would pick up the phone, which bracha she gave for which kid. The simcha that Babi took into our simchas and the feeling of pride that she had in our accomplishments crystallized for us what a simcha it was and what an accomplishment it was. Where you couldn't find in your own heart yet the simcha, libay lev ha'am. They understand greater than you the accomplishments. They understand greater than you. They sacrificed more to bring you to where you are today. They did it in a way which it's their Paris, and you are a part of a mishpacha. You are continuing. Always remember how Babi, for our l'chaim, how she obviously was very unwell already at the time. She came straight into, it wasn't a vort, it was a l'chaim. She slept into Montreal. She sat with my mother and father for their first simcha, and she went right back the next day. A simcha to Babi was truly a simcha. I heard said from Shlomo Kluger in Sefer Kilis Yaakov, still in the middle of the Shiva de Nechemta in the month of Av, that we know that Yirmiyahu begins with Divrei Yirmiyahu, the words of Yirmiyahu. And Yeshayahu is Chazayin Yeshayahu, the vision of Yeshaya. What's the difference between Divrei and Chazayin? And he explains that this is the essence of Shabbos Chazayin. Sometimes you can hear a person speak, but if there's a mechitza, if there's a barrier between you and the person, so if the person's complaining to you, all you hear is the words of complaint that the person is, whatever tsaris or yisurim or piranus the person is describing to you, that becomes the essence of the person. That's all you hear, that's all you know about, that's all you can relate to. You walk away from such a conversation thinking of the nebuch, of the oivei of this person. But if you remove the mechitza, if a person's complaining to you, but you remove the mechitza and you see that the person is sitting in a beautiful home, surrounded by children, there's ample whatever he needs. So he's complaining about his tooth. He has a terrible toothache. But you think to this person, oivei, he has a toothache, but what a beautiful life. The same is with Klal Yisrael, says Reb Shlomo Kluger. Divrei Yirmiyahu. In Yirmiyahu, we only find Rubai Piranus. The Piranus of Klal Yisrael, the Piranus of the Churbanos, the destructions of the Beis Hamikdash, and the tzaris which Klal Yisrael will go through. But it's only Divrei. That's not seeing the full picture. Chazayin Yeshayahu. Yeshayahu begins with the Piranus. Chazayin Yeshayahu, what we read on Shabbos Chazayin. But Yeshayahu is Kulei Nechama. Yeshayahu is describing the Geula of Klal Yisrael. Yeshayahu is describing that the Piranus is just a step. The Piranus is just a gateway to the eventual Geula, the eventual Simcha Shlema, which Klal Yisrael will eventually be part of and be the essence of. So if one were to hear the Dvarim, perhaps, of the last 15, 16 months, obviously there's a lot of Piranus, a lot of terrible Yisurim. Re'ei Anochi, in order to perfect a person, the Rebbeinu Shalom brings things which a person never asks for, but they're Yisurim Shalava. Perhaps if we would ask some of the staff in the hospital, what did they see? What was their chazayin? They saw children and grandchildren, devoted daughters and son-in-laws, son and daughter-in-law who would give away all of their time. Anafim daimim l'shayresh, children that are giving kavod, children that are showing that we're different. Children that are this is the beautiful mishpacha, bringing an unbelievable kiddush Hashem, bringing an unbelievable chashivus for life, chashivus for every minute of the Rebbeinu Shalom's life. We're not our own. we didn't come here by ourselves and we don't leave here by ourselves. Perhaps we can say that Babi went along with her parents and siblings. She went to Kiddush Hashem. Just to conclude, the unbelievable Mesiras Nefesh and Kibbut of Ha'em, which we were zeicha to see in our home. Obviously, each of the three children can say the same thing. We speak from our vantage point, which we see from mommy and daddy over these last, all the years of our life, specifically during the difficult years, more specifically in the last few months. More than any words that were spoken, it was actions which conveyed deep emunah, deep appreciation of previous deiros, appreciation that all we are is the previous deiros. And for that, we are altogether eternally grateful. The Pasuk says, Bonim atem l'Hashem lekeichem, and that's why we are commanded, the Ramban and the Kli Yakar both say that the end of the Pasuk is what it really means, Bonim atem l'Hashem lekeichem. That the Pasuk finishes, Ki am kodesh atal Hashem lekecha, v'chol bocher Hashem liyos loy la'am segula. Hashem chose you to be for His nation of segula. Ramban and Kli Yakar explained that this refers to the nefashos b'olam haba. That Rebbeinu Shleilim b'chol bocher Hashem chose you. Hashem chose your nefashos. Bonim atem. There's no reason. Obviously, like the Ramban says, there's a time for bechi. It's natural for bechi. Be'in mesablin yoser midai. We're not supposed to be misabel more than, obviously, the time now is the time for bechi. But we're not allowed to make any representation because the truth is, Bonim atem l'Hashem lekeichem, the neshamis are taken to Olam haba, the neshamis are Eitzel Rebbeinu Shleilim. We asked Babi, together with Zaidi, to be a Meilit Yosher, to ask the Rebbeinu Shleilim, with your pure tefillas, to bring all the Yeshuas that the family needs, to bring simchas and more simchas, and Yeshuas and more Yeshuas, parnosa, for who needs parnosa. Mocha Hashem lekim dimah mi'al kol panim b'nei maramin.
El malay rachamim shoychen ma'meroimim hametzei mnuchane chayna al kanfei ashchina b'malais k'toyshim u'toyrim k'zoyad harakia mazirim es nishmas v'mitbas Abraham shalachal yoylama Avush mishpachto yitein stachol be'ad haskaras nishmasa b'gan Eden tehei menuchasa v'chein bal rachamim yasira b'seiser knafav li'olam yiyim v'yitzar b'tzarach hayim esh nismasa Adonai hu nachlasa v'senuach b'sholim al mishkava v'noim aramei.
We are proceeding from here for Kevurah, Bathurst Lawn Cemetery. Of course, we're private and limited. The Shiva is taking place at 51 Palm Drive, including next Tuesday morning, August 18th. Please consult the emails for the davening times for Shachris, Mincha, and Mara.
Those who are tuned in to Those who are tuned in on Zoom, I will be following the Levaya as it takes place away from the shul. Then we'll stop for about a half hour while the Mrs. Werzberger is brought up to the feld, and then we'll reconvene. Those who want to see the actual Kevurah can tune in following that. So in a few short moments, the actual Levaya will be starting.
Whatever you can do. So let me see if I can. The other thing is I don't want to replace necessarily before the ready. So we can just ask you. Right. Okay. I got it. Okay. So circle around the city. I understand. Get my tax. Almost.
David. Okay, for all those who are joined in on Zoom, the procession is going to obviously head to Bathurst Lawn in Clanton Park. We're unclear at what time the actual Kevurah will take place. If it'll be at approximately 10 to 3 or possibly 3:30. Tune in not before 3 o'clock if you want to follow the actual Kevurah. There may be a delay as they wait for Dr. Werzberger to arrive. So if it's available, the Zoom feed will continue then. For all those who you know who may have missed the Levaya, this Levaya was recorded and is available at a later time. You will be asked the family for the link. Thank you. It's Akiva Balter again. Just to update you, it doesn't look like the Kevurah will take place until 4 p.m. There may or may not be a Zoom at that feed, as I explained earlier. Dr. Werzberger is scheduled to arrive approximately at 3, and until he gets to the cemetery will be a little bit of time. So if you'd like to tune back in at 4 o'clock, there may be a feed for the actual Kevurah. For now, this room will remain open. And if there's somebody, if you want to send messages to the family of condolences, please use the chat function.